Perspective now from David Gergen, who served 4 presidents, and Democratic Congressman Jim Himes, who sits on the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Himes, does this request for the president's tax returns lack a legitimate legislative purpose, as Mnuchin now claims?
Nothing could be further from the truth. And I mean, it's really an interesting case because, as you know, Anderson, there's always been a dance under every president over how fast you produce documents over some investigation Congress is doing, or whether you send somebody, in this case, in this president's case, the Attorney General. In this case, there is zero ambiguity. The law, and you can look at it, the law says that the IRS shall, with no conditions, no nothing, shall turn over whatever returns are requested by 3 people, and in this case, of course, the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. And by the way, there's precedent for this. In the last presidency, that same law was invoked. So, I mean, it's fascinating to me that Mnuchin is saying that he can't lawfully do it, because the truth is, and you don't need to be a lawyer to see this, you can't lawfully not do it.
Well, David, clearly, even if the congressman is correct and the law is on the side of those who want the tax returns, Steve Mnuchin knows how the president feels about this and is clearly, legality aside, doing what the president wants him to do.
Absolutely, and the president doesn't have to say a word to him. Mnuchin knows what's expected. But first of all, I so much agree with Congressman Himes. The law is plain on its face. It's a law that goes all the way back to the 1920s after the Teapot Dome scandal and the Harding administration, one of the most infamous scandals in American history. And the Congress said, from now on, the IRS shall provide tax returns upon a written request, say, of the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. And so what we don't know is whether, in fact, and I assume what the Trump administration is going to say is that law is unconstitutional. They'll fight it in the courts, and they'll also drag this out. Okay? I mean, clearly the stonewalling is all about trying to take as much as possible and put it, all the investigations that last way past the next election, 2020, November 2020, and let them be resolved then. That's what the White House is trying to do.
Yeah, I mean, Congressman, it is a long court battle, which is obviously where this seems to be headed. Is it a win for the administration? I mean, isn't it all to a certain degree about them being able to kick the can down the road?
Well, that's obviously their strategy here. And so that raises a couple of questions. I mean, to all of us, and I include my Republican colleagues in this, they need to decide whether they're going to support this strategy, because it wasn't that long ago, in fact, it was 2 or 3 years ago, that they were investigating President Obama. And of course, the usual dance obtained. In some cases, the Obama administration didn't produce stuff as fast as the Republican Congress wanted, but eventually they did. So now the Republicans need to decide, are they going to validate this strategy, which makes ineffective congressional oversight? They will once again, at some point in the future, want to conduct oversight over a Democratic president. Now, I don't hold a lot of hope out for that, but that's where you open the door to things you were discussing earlier. Congress has its own authority through processes like inherent contempt, like its control of the purse strings. There are other tools that Congress can use to try to motivate the executive to do what every other president has done in 240 years, which is submit to the oversight of the co-equal branch of government known as the Congress.
The thing is, David, I mean, even if Congress doesn't get the tax returns, it's not going away. I mean, whoever ends up being the Democratic nominee is sure to use this against the president throughout the campaign, no?
Yeah, and by the way, the Democratic candidates, the top half dozen, have provided their tax information. Only Joe Biden hasn't, but is expected to soon. But there are a couple of other things the Democrats could do to fight this off. One is, and it's already underway in the state of New York, is to have the state of New York officially adopt a law that his state tax returns have to be furnished, and that process is moving along. The other thing, Anderson, is that some states are thinking of, and I think some are going to act on the idea of having a law before the 2020 elections, which says that in order to be on the ballot in this state, you have to release your tax returns. That could also force the president's hand, perhaps, to release the returns before the 2020 elections.
Congressman Himes, I mean, do you think this looks good for Democrats, or does it run the risk of looking like, their priorities are out of whack and they're essentially going after the president for the point of going after the president?
Well, I guess I think a couple things. Number one, the president didn't produce his tax returns in 2016. That didn't keep him from being elected. I don't think this is likely to be a winning political issue in 2020. Number two, I have severe doubts about whether states should be allowed to layer on qualifications for the president of the United States. I mean, if we open that door, God only knows what states will decide they want to do in order to put somebody on the ballot. But look, Anderson, we're forgetting something here, which this is much bigger than what we're talking about here, which is this is a huge question for everybody in this country, which is, are we going to be a nation of laws? And you can believe that the president shouldn't have to produce his tax returns voluntarily. You can believe that the Congress is harassing the president of the United States. But the law, it could not be more clear here. And so this is really the fundamental issue is, are we going to allow the president to blatantly ignore the law?
David Gergen, Congressman Himes, appreciate it. Thank you.